Are you ready?
Yeah.
Yes.
This is the Ross Kaminsky Show.
You're a great American.
He's a great guy.
Now, Ross Kaminsky on Denver's talk station, 630 KHOW.
Well, here we are. Good morning. I'm Ross. Thanks for being here. I'm up on YouTube. If you want to go to youtube.com/Ross Kaminsky. No, I don't think you go to /Ross Kaminsky. Go to youtube.com and type Ross Kaminsky in the search box, and then you'll find me this morning. Wow, this is pretty nuts. A lot more like 2016 than I might have thought with what's going on right now. You remember in 2016, former FBI director and condescender-in-chief Jim Comey came out with an announcement that the FBI was reopening an investigation into Hillary Clinton and private email servers and all of that. And with 2 days to go, I think it was 2 days before Election Day, he made the announcement that there weren't going to be any charges filed against Hillary Clinton because, as he put it, no competent, what was the word he used, prosecutor would file charges in these situations. That was a determination that he was not allowed to make. The FBI are the investigators, not the prosecutors, and that job was supposed to be left to the DOJ, who might have said the same thing, but Jim Comey did something he certainly wasn't supposed to do and also made a conclusion that was wrong. Right? There are plenty of prosecutors who, in my opinion, and Andy McCarthy's opinion, former federal prosecutor, who said he certainly would have brought charges in those circumstances. So I don't want to spend our time living in the past. Let's talk about what's going on today. So now we have these explosive emails retrieved from what looks increasingly like it really is Hunter Biden's computer, or at least the data is really Hunter Biden's data. And the FBI has this thing, and there have been a bunch of stories out in the past 24 hours or so, including that the laptop was taken by the FBI, and looking at the document that was used to obtain it, it looks like it was part of a money laundering investigation. It doesn't say that they were looking at Hunter Biden necessarily as the money launderer, but it could have been. Could have been other people who were involved in that. Could be Chinese. Could be, who knows? Who knows what it was? But in any case, it does appear that data on that laptop is part of some kind of FBI investigation that the FBI is not willing to talk about. There was also some chatter yesterday that President Trump is very frustrated with FBI Director Chris Wray, who has been something of a disappointment. But Trump is frustrated with him for not essentially doing what Comey did, which is to say, to come out in the heart of election season while votes are being cast. Far more votes being cast this year and more votes being cast earlier this year. Trump wants Wray to come out and basically say, we're investigating the Bidens, in the same way that Comey said, I'm investigating Hillary Clinton. And Chris Wray is not going anywhere near that, in part, I think, because a lot of these people are really institutionalists, much more than they are partisans. And that's actually good. Generally speaking, I do not want law enforcement to be politicized in the way that Jim Comey did. This is a really tough one. If you're running the FBI, if you have credible evidence that a guy who's about to be elected president of the United States might soon thereafter be, let's say, charged with some kind of crime. And I'm not saying Joe Biden is there, all right? But what do you do? What do you do as an FBI director? On the one hand, you don't want to politicize this, and if you say anything, you will be accused by half the country of trying to throw the election toward the other guy. And if you don't say anything, and it comes out shortly after an election that you were investigating a guy and now you found something and now there's a serious issue, but then the guy is president, and while he's president, he can't be charged. He can't, all this stuff has to wait till after he's president. Then you go through a lot of this same kind of shenanigans that we've been hearing about from the left, at least regarding President Trump and all the stuff the Trump haters want to charge him with. But, the district attorney in New York, right? Well, we'll wait till he's out of office and we'll probably charge him then, that kind of thing. And then you put the country through all of that again. What a mess. Now, here's the thing with Biden that's a little bit different from Hillary Clinton 4 years ago. Every honest person knew that Hillary Clinton was a liar and a criminal. because we all knew that she had used a private email server and that classified information, and I'm not talking about our most important secrets, but that doesn't really matter. Classified information had gone back and forth over her private server. That is a violation of the law. Hillary Clinton knew it was a violation of the law because she had actually given warnings on paper to the entire State Department staff about not doing things that would allow work email to be transported outside of secure work email systems that not only were safe, but also would allow the Records Act to be fulfilled, which means that the government can get and keep copies of all of the business, the government business correspondence. So by doing stuff on her private server, Hillary Clinton dodged all that. She knew she was breaking the law, but actually that particular law does not require knowledge that you're breaking the law. It's one of the rare laws where the text of the law specifically says intent is irrelevant, and if you break the law based on the procedure, you've broken the law. Whether or not you intended to, whether or not you knew it was the law, none of that matters. And of course, that's important because when you're trying to keep our secrets out of the hands of enemies, you can't let people use as a defense, well, I didn't know that was the law. Right? If you are someone who is going to be in a position where you are entrusted with classified information, you will have been told before you were granted the security clearance what the law is. Okay, so now we got Biden, the Bidens. We got all this stuff from Hunter Biden that looks like the swampiest, slimiest, stinkiest swamp rat stuff you've probably ever heard of. And we also have Joe Biden having said repeatedly that he did not talk to his son about his son's business and that he had nothing to do with it and that his son was just off doing what his son would do because his son's a smart guy. That's what Joe Biden says. Son's a smart guy. In some of this email chatter that we've seen, one of the things is about Hunter Biden trying to set up a deal with a Chinese company, and they are talking about setting up another company and allocating the stock holdings of the other company. And within the email that describes what the proposed stock allocations are like, and by the way, we don't know whether any of this ever came to fruition. We don't know whether the company was created. We don't know whether Hunter Biden was able to make millions of dollars a year in consulting fees, which is, great work for a crackhead. But in the email, it says 10% held by H for the big guy, which everybody understands to mean 10% of the company will be stock that is beneficially owned for Joe Biden, but just not held in Joe Biden's name. Now, in the interest of being absolutely fair and balanced, I will note that this particular scene, this particular email that we're talking about, was dated in 2017, which means it was after Joe Biden was out of office. And it would be difficult to say that Joe Biden doing anything in terms of business that wasn't, just outright fraud or something like that would be a criminal act or even unethical, really. He was out of office. The people who were in office now were not his friends. It was the Trump administration. It'd be a little bit difficult for him to, he couldn't take an official act because he's not an official. That said, people kept giving money to Hillary Clinton when she was out of office. The Clinton Foundation kept raking in millions and millions and tens and hundreds of millions of dollars from governments and other people around the world who clearly were investing in the possibility that Hillary would become president one day, and they wanted to buy her favor. And before that, they wanted to buy access to her in the State Department. That's when she was still in office. So maybe people were trying to do something for Joe Biden on the thought that either he'd be president one day or that some other Democrat who he was tight with would be president one day and he would have access and influence over a Democratic administration. Again, we don't know which of this stuff actually happened. We just know what's in the email. Shortly after the emails came out and caused this major controversy that is still ongoing, when Twitter barred tweets that shared the New York Post's original story and second story. And by the way, the New York Post has not issued a tweet in 8 days. And I don't know whether they are still blocked by Twitter, or whether they were only blocked by Twitter for part of the time and are just choosing not to tweet. I have no idea, but my guess is that they are still being blocked by Twitter, one of the oldest newspapers in the United States of America, because they published a story that increasingly appears to be true. It'd be one thing if the story came out and no one else could verify it, and Twitter, and even this would be aggressive, okay? Probably too aggressive for my taste, but it would be one thing if they added a little tag to a New York Post tweet saying, you know, this important story has not been verified by other sources. Now, I don't even think they should do that. But simply blocking the New York Post and lots of other people who shared the story, outrageous. And I think Twitter's going to get what's coming to them. The question is whether politicians will overreact in a way that will end up really hurting the internet and not just Twitter. We will talk about that another time. So the New York Post has another story this morning. This is from columnist Michael Goodwin, who I believe is a lifelong Democrat who became a Trump supporter back in 2016, voted for Trump, and has been, I think he's a great writer. I think he's really again, to use the term, fair and balanced writer. So Goodwin got a statement from a guy named Tony Bobulinski, who is one of the people apparently referenced in the China email and Hunter Biden's computer that we're talking about. And remember that shortly after the story came out, all we got out of the mainstream media on this were attempts to debunk it, to call it Russian disinformation. We had multiple former heads of CIA and intelligence agencies like Brennan and Clapper, and even, unfortunately, my friend Mike Morrell signed on to this thing. I was a little disappointed, saying we don't have evidence that this is Russian information, but it looks like it could be because this is the kind of thing they would do. Well, that's not what people like you should be saying. And then the director of national intelligence came out and said, we in the intelligence department, in the intelligence agencies, do not believe that this is any kind of Russian disinformation. And now we learn that the FBI does have the computer, and it's starting to look more and more real. And now we have a statement from this gentleman, Tony Bobulinski, to the New York Post. And it's not very long. I am going to share it with you in its entirety. Here we go. My name is Tony Bobulinski. The facts set forth below are true and accurate. They are not any form of domestic or foreign disinformation. Any suggestion to the contrary is false and offensive. I am the recipient of the email published 7 days ago by the New York Post, which showed a copy to Hunter Biden and Rob Walker. That email is genuine. This afternoon, I received a request from the Senate Committee on Homeland Security and Government Affairs and the Senate Committee on Finance, requesting all documents relating to my business affairs with the Biden family, as well as various foreign entities and individuals. I have extensive relevant records and communications, and I intend to produce those items to both committees in the immediate future. I am the grandson of a 37-year Army intelligence officer, the son of a 20-plus year career naval officer, and the brother of a 28-year career naval flight officer. I myself served our country for 4 years and left the Navy as Lieutenant Bobulinski. I held a high-level security clearance and was an instructor and then CTO for Naval Nuclear Power Training Command. I take great pride in the time my family and I served this country. I am also not a political person. What few campaign contributions I have made in my life were to Democrats. If the media and big tech companies had done their jobs over the past several weeks, I would be irrelevant in this story. Given my long-standing service and devotion to this great country, I could no longer allow my family's name to be associated or tied to Russian disinformation or implied lies and false narratives dominating the media right now. After leaving the military, I became an institutional investor, investing extensively around the world and on every continent. I've traveled to over 50 countries. I believe, hands down, we live in the greatest country in the world. What I am outlining is fact. I know it is fact because I lived it. I am the CEO of Sinohawk Holdings, which was a partnership between the Chinese operating company through CEFC Chairman Yi and the Biden family. I was brought into the company to be the CEO by James Gilliar and Hunter Biden. The reference to the big guy in the much publicized May 13, 2017 email is in fact a reference to Joe Biden. The other JB referenced in that email is Jim Biden, Joe's brother. Hunter Biden called his dad the big guy or my chairman and frequently referenced asking him for his sign-off or advice on various potential deals that we were discussing. I've seen Vice President Biden saying he never talked to Hunter about his business. I've seen firsthand that that's not true because it wasn't just Hunter's business. They said they were putting the Biden family name and its legacy on the line. I realized the Chinese were not really focused on a healthy financial ROI. They were looking at this as a political or influence investment. Once I realized that Hunter wanted to use the company as his personal piggy bank by just taking money out of it as soon as it came from the Chinese, I took steps to prevent that from happening. The Johnson report, and he's talking about Senator Ron Johnson from Wisconsin, maybe we'll get him on beginning of next week to talk about this, connected some dots in a way that shocked me. It made me realize the Bidens had gone behind my back and gotten paid millions of dollars by the Chinese, even though they told me they hadn't and wouldn't do that to their partners. I'd ask the Biden family to address the American people and outline the facts so I can go back to being irrelevant. And so I am not put in a position to have to answer those questions for them. I don't have a political axe to grind. I just saw behind the Biden curtain, and I grew concerned with what I saw. The Biden family aggressively leveraged the Biden family name to make millions of dollars from foreign entities, even though some were from communist-controlled China. God bless America. That today, New York Post.
This is Denver's Talk Station with Ross Kaminsky now. Tom Martino at 10, 630